So there is an interesting article in the Washington Post that highlights something we at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center had begun practicing back in 2016. Now, the Joint Multinational Readiness Center is one of these training centers that the U.S. military uses to prepare for battle. And these centers, including NTC and others, are transitioning away from COIN, also known as counterinsurgency, to a more near-peer fight with potentially Russia or China being that near-peer foe. You see, the training centers are not only for training units, they are research institutes for best practices in warfare. Not only for the US, but nearly every exercise that takes place has a multinational partner or ally involved. At JMRC in Germany, there are more multinational partners than US units much of the time. It is part of the NATO interoperability framework. It is to train and equip all of the NATO nations the same and then share best practices across nations. So there are three major dedicated training centers the U.S. manages. Those are the National Training Center in California, which is what the Washington Post article was talking about. There is the Joint Readiness Training Center in Louisiana, and there is the Joint Multinational Readiness Center in Germany. I have trained at both U.S. location and was permanent cadre at the Germany location. My specialty in Germany was artillery logistics, which, lo and behold, is probably one of the biggest factors in today's fight with Russia. I would argue naval power would probably be the biggest factor in a fight with China. Now, these training centers are quite large. The National Training Center in California is like 1,100 plus square miles, which is almost the size of Rhode Island. They also simulate different terrain, with NTC simulating the Middle East theater, JRTC simulating a jungle theater, and JMRC simulating a Eurasian theater. But recently, there's been a focus at some of these to transition to trench warfare and a near-peer fight as well. These centers provide the ability to train a multi-dimensional fight, everything from ground to air. And yes, even naval air aviation assets participate. Cyberspace is involved, space is involved, information, intelligence gathering, etc. They even have fake social media accounts they build to influence what is going on the battlefield. There are also hundreds of actors playing everything from civilians on the battlefield to international charities and government officials. All of this is controlled by a centralized hub managing the whole battlefield for training units. It's quite impressive. The enemy, or OPFOR, is actually a U.S. Army unit that is dedicated and stationed there, and they just wear a different uniform, usually all black, and they're equipped with everything a modern military has, including the ability to hack and exploit, as well as counter digital systems. What is really interesting about these training centers is they're not designed to only be a place to practice fighting a battle. They are also designed to be research centers for doctrine and test beds for technology. Cadre are nominated for their positions at these locations based on their tactical and strategic prowess. There is an expectation that during downtimes between rotations, the observer coach trainers, or OCTs, which is what I was, study doctrine, review best practices, and write research papers to be submitted for publication. I wrote 3 during my time, one of which became the new standard for conducting a resupply for highly mobile artillery. We were also a part of a research and development arm for the military, testing highly sensitive equipment along with new tactics. This war in Ukraine has been a gold mine of information, but also kind of an eye-opener to something we at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center in Germany and our Eastern European partners have been harping on for a while, that the next war with a near-peer foe will not be the same as our previous wars in the Middle East. Ukraine's experiences have highlighted the need for a comprehensive reassessment of how the U.S. military practices in the field, ranging from mission planning to the deployment of technology, and all of this underpins everything they do. Now, as I've said before, NTC was traditionally modeled after the Middle Eastern conflict zones like Iraq and Afghanistan, but the facility has recently changed its landscape to mimic the Ukraine conflict environment and has incorporated extensive trench systems across its terrain. These transformations reflect the lessons learned from Ukraine, especially regarding the challenges posed by Russian artillery tactics, which have significantly impacted a reevaluation of the U.S. military's training and operational strategies. The emphasis on the dangers posed by electronic equipment used in combat zones, with soldiers being advised to not use cell phones, don't even bring them. This way they can avoid enemy detection. I can tell you that this is something we were doing 7 years ago at the Joint Multinational Readiness Center in Germany. It came on the heels of Russia's 2014 invasion of Ukraine. Now, the training at NTC involves scenarios that underscore the vulnerability associated with electronic device usage, and this includes cell phones and hotspots, drawing parallels between the risks posed by smartphones today and the dangers of smoking cigarettes in a combat zone during World War II. Moreover, the training emphasizes the importance of operational security as simulated exercises demonstrate how enemy forces can exploit cell phone data and tracking data and target U.S. forces in real time. The U.S. can do this too. These necessary changes extend beyond phones as well. They include broader tactical considerations such as managing your electromagnetic footprint and your thermal signature. And this is especially true of military equipment so that you can evade enemy surveillance. Gone are the days of everyone sitting in their warm or cooled vehicles. Gone are the days of giant fob villages, large battalion and brigade command posts lovingly referred to as Taj Mahals, as a reference to the Taj Mahal Palace. As technology gets better, we seem to have to use less of it. Maps under red lens rather than screens in vehicles. No more generators. Encrypted radios over battlefield command post systems. Nothing that emits a signal is being used anymore. Runners are making their way back into the battlefield. Absolute light discipline, meaning everything is dark. And yes, that includes cigarettes that light up everything around it when they're lit, like a beacon under night vision. The lessons from Ukraine have also prompted a rethink of drone warfare, pushing the U.S. military to explore new strategies and technologies to counter the increasing threat of inexpensive and hard-to-detect drones. Sensitive microphones that can detect the hum of drone propellers and a myriad of anti-drone countermeasures are being developed. It led to the U.S. military declaring a staple of coin operations, the Raven and the Shadow drones, obsolete in current warfare. Innovations inspired by Ukrainian resilience, such as developing drone-borne grenade-dropping systems, are informing U.S. and NATO defense strategies moving forward. However, the past continues to rear its head. At the Joint Readiness Training Center in Louisiana, troops are revisiting traditional warfare techniques such as digging trenches under the new dig or die ethos, highlighting a renewed importance of physical cover and concealment, something that we didn't have to worry about as much during coin operations. The reflections on the evolving nature of warfare, influenced by the Ukrainian war, underscores a critical period of adaptation and learning for the U.S. military, emphasizing the need for continuous innovation in the face of challenging global threats. This is going to be difficult because it seems the U.S. is still somewhat tied to the Middle East where counterinsurgency operations are necessary. If the U.S. wants to be the predominant global power projection country, it seems we will have to manage a delicate balancing act of units specializing in Middle East-style coin operations and Eurasian near-peer warfare. Nonetheless, these training centers and the lessons they provide will mold into doctrine and will be critical going forward.